A direct telephone number to attend this meeting can be found on the front page of tonight's agenda, and I will post this information to the group chat shortly. Mr. Chair, I give the meeting back to you for public comment. I have not received any written comment, but it looks like there might be some people in the audience. Mr. Mullen has his hand up.
Raise hands.
Mr. Kevin Mullen from Patton Township has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Mullen. I own a house in Patton Township. My concern is the UAJA wastewater utility. They overbilled me by $2,000 in the last 5 or 6 years. I set up a website to describe everything they did, statecollegereport.com, statecollegereport.com. If any of you want to discuss this issue with me, you can contact me at the site. At the bottom, there's a contact form. I wish some of you would get involved to tell the UAJA, Corey Miller, to treat me like they treat all of you. He treated me much worse than all of you. All of you paid 1 sewer bill, I paid 2. And my house is much smaller than some of your houses, and I use less water than some of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Moving on to approval of minutes. We have January 25 minutes to approve. Motion.
Laura moves to approve.
Go, Laura.
Second.
Got a second by Danelle? Right?
Second.
Okay.
Elliot.
Elliot? Okay, fine. Thank you. Discussion of minutes. Not hearing any. All in favor of accepting those minutes signify by saying aye or wave your hand or
Aye.
Aye.
whatever's convenient for you. Okay. Eric, you and Joe are doing some staff recognition.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is one of the highlights of the agenda for me, is to be able to share with you some of the great things that some of my colleagues have been doing within the COG. And I'm going to turn it right over to Joe to tell a little bit more about our colleague Don tonight. Thanks.
Okay, is my microphone doing okay?
Yeah.
Everybody hear me okay? Good.
Yep.
Okay, I'm here along with Don Frank, who thinks he was invited to answer questions about the jam ladder replacement at the COG building, but he's not. He's here to be recognized for his volunteer work over at the COG for the past couple of years. Rewinding the clock back to 2017, COG began to realize it had some holes in the manner in which it was maintaining its facilities. These thoughts were not coordinated. Rather, they were based on experiences and the feeling that there was a lack of a comprehensive plan that could positively impact decision-making. The issue was discussed at Finance Committee and led to the creation of the Facilities Committee in 2018. Most people probably do not realize the impact that Don had on the creation of the Facilities Committee. He has an amazing ability to coordinate random thoughts, feelings, and ideas, and define and organize those into concrete problems in an easy to understand manner with solutions being offered. This ability to organize was instrumental in communicating the challenges COG was facing to and between the elected officials. Once the Facilities Committee was created, Don provided other services that I'll get into later. People do not realize how much the Facilities Committee had on its plate when it was created in 2018. It had to learn about facilities management, its importance, and receive trainings on facilities, gain an inventory of the COG facilities, get organized, develop a work plan, communicate and coordinate issues between COG agencies, elected officials, and municipalities, deal with new issues as they arose, many times without subject matter expertise on, and then also gain an understanding as to what COG actually owned in its current condition. I'd like to focus on the last 2 items, as this is where Don has had the greatest impact, volunteering valuable services to COG and saving the COG, municipalities, and the Center Region taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. While the Facilities Committee worked on the abstract and attempted to gain an understanding to such questions as, okay, we own a library at a cost of $8 million. What exactly do we need to do to inventory its components and set up a replacement plan for them? Don went to work. He performed a more detailed inventory of and assessed the condition of the COG building and Patton Fire Station. He met with various staff, architects, contractors, technicians, engineers, just to name a few, to obtain an assessment of those facilities. And most importantly, he worked cooperatively with staff in the committee that were there, he worked cooperatively with the staff in the committee to let them know that there were important and immediate decisions that need to be made to positively impact the functioning of the facilities and the long-term decision-making that should occur. Don has provided the COG with services that have led to the creation and defined the responsibilities of the facilities coordinator position. His work led the facilities committee to recognize that COG needed a full-time staff person to perform the work he was volunteering, to provide the elected officials with a new, more educated perspective on how to manage, maintain, and plan for its facilities in a proactive rather than a reactive manner. From where the facilities committee is sitting, the most important thing that Don has done is to lay the foundation for this new approach to facilities management, an approach that will continue to benefit the COG, the municipalities, and the residents of the center region for years to come. Don, on behalf of the facilities committee, elected officials, COG, and municipal staff, and the residents of the center region, I would like to express our appreciation of the services you have graciously volunteered and continue to volunteer. It has been and continues to be my distinct pleasure to have gotten to know and work with you on both a personal and professional level. Thank you, Don.
Should we have a round of applause for Don?
Thank you very much.
I saw that second Frank name up there and had never met Don. I thought, that looks much like his son, so. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
To quote one of our favorite sayings in the facilities committee, I am the spawn of Dawn.
Oh, would your father care to make any comments? Don?
You're mute.
You're muted.
Am I
There you
muted?
go.
Am I
Yep.
still muted?
Nope, you're okay.
Thank you very much. It has really been a pleasure for me since coming back to State College from Florida a couple of years ago to have gotten involved in something that keeps me active and allows me to use some of the resources that I've developed over my career. I've particularly enjoyed working with the members of the COG administration and the pseudo facility managers who really need to be applauded for their service. I am ready to continue to help in whatever the facilities committee would ask me to do happily. Thank you again very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 4, it says that Eric is going to do a resolution, but I'm going to assume that wonderful honor instead of Eric. So I believe.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but I think Laura Danini had her hand up.
Sorry, no, that was just an excessively long clap of appreciation.
Sorry, I
Thank you.
want to make sure you were recognized if
Yeah.
needed.
Put your hand down, Laura. Is Kathy Alloway on somewhere?
He is on with video.
She is. Where'd she go?
I'm here. I'm here.
There you are. Okay. Hi, Kathy. I have a statement to read. Whereas Kathy Alloway began her tenure with Slow Center Regional Library on April 1, 2010, and currently serves as the library director. And whereas Kathy served as a passionate advocate for the library, its programs, services, and staff, volunteered countless hours of her time on behalf of the library patrons, provided wise counsel to library leaders and the library board, and championed the library's objectives to stimulate imagination, develop information fluency, foster lifelong learning, and create young readers. And whereas Kathy provided steadfast leadership during major facility revitalization projects during her tenure, in which the library's public spaces were transformed and reimagined for the library services in the 21st century. Whereas, under her leadership, the Slow Center Regional Library responded to the needs of patrons by installing an RFID-based self-checkout system, expanding and improving fundraising, initiating participation in center gives, securing grants, and regularly increasing and improving financial giving to the library, completing the 2017-2019 strategic plan, and quickly adapting to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic by expanding electronic services, door-side pickups, and Wi-Fi connectivity in the parking lot. And whereas Kathy has been described as the beating heart of the library, a ball of fire, and star of the COG for her leadership to the COG and the library by the region's municipal managers, and was well known for being engaging, articulate, guiding her team with strength, confidence, sympathy, and also a sense of humor at the end of our meetings. Whereas Kathy's communication and teamwork have been valued by elected officials and colleagues in the Center region due to her helpfulness, responsiveness, and regular updates that were the highlight of many General Forum meetings. And there's more, Kevin. And whereas Kathy has been recognized as a state and local expert in library operations, and she has excelled in building partnerships that integrate the library into the community. As a result, Kathy was sought after to serve in organizations across the Commonwealth and Center region, including Pennsylvania's Integrated Library System, Vice President, Mid-State Literacy Council, Board President, CBICC Workforce Development Committee, Program Committee, Leadership Center County, CNET, Facilitator for the CNET Strategic Plan, Downtown State College. And whereas Kathy retires from her position of Library Director for SLO Center Regional Library, the Center Region Council of Government staff and members of the forum wish to express our admiration and appreciation for her leadership, commitment, and years of service to the COG and the residents of Center Region. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the General Forum and the Center Region Council of Government honors, thanks, and commends Kathy for her years of service and guidance to her library, wishes her the best in her future endeavors, and hereby declares her a permanent card holder of the Center Regional Library, granting her all the rights and privileges with distinction. And it will be signed by myself. I'd like the General Forum to put our hands together with great vigor and thank Kathy for all the work that she's done. Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That is a resolution, and
Yeah.
I move that the General Forum adopt Resolution 2021-2, a resolution of commendation and appreciation for Kathy Alloway on her retirement from COG after a decade of service to the Center Regional Library, the Center Region Council of Governments, its member municipalities, and the recipients, and the residents of the Center Region.
Have a second on that?
I second.
Someone, okay, thank you. Any discussion? I'm sure we'd have a lot of comments to add to that, but that could go on for hours, so.
I have a comment.
Okay, Nigel?
Yeah, Kathy is incredible. She hardly ever missed a Human Resources Committee meeting because she was so interested in human resources and as it, affected the library.
Trying to track COVID. No.
I think she came to Human Resources to make sure you wouldn't be cutting her staff. She was trying to save all the wonderful positions she had there. So anyone else care to? I see no other hands popped up. Father?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Barlow had his hand up.
Okay.
Jesse? Yes, I would just like to say two things. In my weekly talk with my daughter, she once again reiterated what a pleasure it was to work at the library under Kathy's leadership. And I would also add,
oops, you froze, Jeff.
Speaking up, Jeff.
Yeah, he died.
He died. He froze up. Anyone else want to pick up? Should we pick him up again? Teresa.
I would simply like to thank Kathy for her amazing efforts, often very outside the box, unique, in how to extend fundraising when we needed it most,
and expand access when COVID tried to shut us down. I think her willingness to try the unique is one of the most wonderful things about her, and it really will be missed.
Thank you. Others? Scott, we have any yellow hands? Kathy, would you care to say a few words? Never short of words. So.
I'm uncharacteristically speechless, but I have really enjoyed working for the only COG supported library in the U.S. All of you here tonight and all of the elected officials of the last 10 years have been so unbelievably supportive. And I've especially been privileged to work with the best library staff, the best COG staff, especially Jim Stepp and Eric Norenberg. And finally, I love the municipal managers. They have been an outstanding support for me for 10 years. I am honored by this resolution and very pleased to tell you that my husband and I are remaining in the center region because you all make the quality of life here so wonderful. We can't imagine living anywhere else. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you. Plus, there's another addition for staying here, Kathy. So, Elliot.
I'm just so happy that Kathy and her husband are going to stay in circulation here. It just speaks volumes of her love for the community. And we'll probably hear for her on any kind of day, whether it's a warm summer day or in the winter when the wind will chapter and verse.
You mean she won't be checking out?
No.
Okay.
Fine.
Others? You okay? Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Chair, we need a vote on the.
Okay, that was next. We have a motion and a second to accept the resolution. All in favor, signify by saying aye or wave your hand.
Aye.
Woohoo!
Kathy, we heard no objection to that one. Okay, let's move on to Sean and the COVID wastewater research report. You on, Sean?
Yes, I am. I hate to follow Kathy's presentation with a wastewater report, but we wanted to get it on the agenda as soon as possible. So I want to welcome Andrew Reed, PhD with Penn State's Department of Entomology. I've had the pleasure to work with Dr. Reed for the last 6 months during COVID and their research involving COVID and wastewater. And during our Public Safety Committee meeting, it was discussed that we should bring him to the General Forum if he was available to discuss, kind of their research. And he's going to give us a brief presentation, and won't delay. I'll turn it over to Dr. Reed to give us a presentation about his wastewater research.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean, and everybody for the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate the work that you're all doing in making our community better. I've never met Kathy, I have to say, but the library's been so important to my family, I was a bit moved. Okay, so the wastewater, there's a bunch of us working on this, and we've been working on it since July. The point of the exercise is that, as you know, there are many situations where we want to know what's going on in terms of the local epidemiology. So you'll know this sort of plot from the news media. And we want to know, it makes a difference as to where you are in these curves as to what you do. So we want to know locally, are the virus levels rising or falling? That can affect decisions about, for example, how much restrictions we should have in place. And also, in principle, where's the virus coming from so that you can target messaging or testing into the locations, for example, a particular building or block or catchment in an area. It's also possible to use the wastewater for variant detection, which viruses are circulating, but we haven't done that yet. That's quite expensive, and we haven't had the resources for that yet. But we have been doing these other two. The wastewater sampling has a long-established track record for other viruses, but for COVID, obviously, it was all new. And so when we started in July, we were inventing everything, and there has been some national presence in this, but everybody's been sort of making it up as we go along. broadly speaking, we measure the amount of wastewater coming through the systems into the wastewater plants or out of different catchments. Then we capture subsamples of that water in a flow or time-based way. So we might get a sample every hour, or we might get a sample every 10,000 gallons or something. And then we do viral detection with molecular biology on that sample. The hard part is that there's lots of things in wastewater that destroy viruses. You know that. That's why we use soaps and disinfectants and stuff to kill viruses. And so those things interfere with our molecular biology. I just want to emphasize too that the wastewater itself is not infectious, so the virus particles are completely destroyed during the process, and everything comes out of a wastewater plant is absolutely safe. Everything going into a wastewater plant, well, we don't think any of it's infectious. It's very rapidly destroyed by the things that are in wastewater. So what we've been doing in the State College area is following individual catchments. So this is the catchment for UAJA. So this is the wastewater area that's drawing into the plant, including this Pine Grove Mills bit. And then this hole in the middle is campus. So we've been taking samples every day since beginning of semester last year, August, and then every week before that from this catchment. And then on campus, so this is the campus catchment, the purple here. And then this green area is part of the borough, but it's a self-contained catchment that has a single point of capture where we can get samples out at the bottom. And this area captures the fraternity area and Beaver Canyon and so forth. So very high density student living. So running up the middle here is college. And so we've been sampling these 3 catchments and actually sub-catchments within campus for some time now. And this is the bottom line. This is a complicated picture, and let me just walk you through this. So this is time along the bottom axis, and that starts around about mid-August, although we did do some sampling before that. So mid-August through to yesterday morning. And then this is the downtown catchment, that pink area I just, that green area I just showed. This is the borough as a whole. And this is the campus catchment area, and this is the borough as a whole. And on the vertical axis, we have the amount of virus we're finding. So that's the total amount of virus that's coming into the plant every day, the different catchments every day. And then each of the black points on a single vertical line is a daily sample where we split it into 4 subsamples, and we do our tests on each of those 4 subsamples. So that's why you get a 4 point. And then the black line running through everything, that is our estimate based on the statistics involved with the samples plus the underlying epidemiological processes. The black line is our best estimate is what's happening to the virus numbers, so the amount of virus in the system coming from people through time. And then the gray area around that is our uncertainty region. This is the Christmas break where we stopped sampling. And this is the start of fall semester. So the end of semester is here, and then we started again early in January. And so this is right up until now. And so you can see several things from this. We captured very well the initial rise on campus last semester and in the community, and the turnover that happened in the second half of September. There's wobbles from there. And then after the students leave, the numbers drop pretty low. Over the Christmas break, there was no amplification. They're still pretty low. Students come back, they rise. But I think the best thing about this at the moment is that although we got some pretty alarming trend to start with at the beginning of this year, it's now turned over. And we can tell from the wastewater that what was happening here was as students were coming back into the downtown area, there's more wastewater. So this was proportional to the number of students coming back. This part here was secondary transmissions amongst the students. So there's more virus being produced than they were producing wastewater. So there was transmission going on in downtown, but this has flipped over now and is falling pretty dramatically. And we don't understand why it's going down, but it's terrific news that it is. It's going down in the catchment as a whole, the borough area as a whole, and pretty flat on campus, although actually the latest numbers are looking like it might start to trend down on campus as well. The students are now fully back on campus, but of course they've been fully back in the community for those of apartments since early January. So I think several things we can tell from this. We did capture very well the initial rise. We captured the drops pretty well, and we captured the turnover. And for us, that's been really very important in getting a picture of what's going on in town. And just to give you a flavor of that, this is the same time series this is the blue line is us. So that's the wastewater in town. This is some of the campus and the borough. And then the red lines are the data that's being reported from the human testing. Okay, so that's the numbers that are coming into the Department of Health each day from the human testing. And so the blue line is the wastewater, and the red jumps are the daily samples, number of new cases reported to the Department of Health for Center County. And you can see we captured pretty well that big increase to start with and the drop off. We captured the wobbles. This huge spike here is the exit testing that was just done before the students left before Thanksgiving. So it looked like a huge case jump, but of course that's because a lot more testing happened. And you can see that in fact the wastewater didn't jump, there was nothing going on. Another important feature of this is when the case numbers started going down on campus, there was a lot of discussion about whether that was due to the students either avoiding testing or getting tested elsewhere in town, and that maybe the system wasn't capturing it well. But you can see that we actually could see quite easily that the decline was happening. One of the magic things about wastewater is people have got to poop, and so they can't escape from us. And so we can see what's going on with great clarity. And then again, you can see over the Christmas period, the numbers are pretty static, and then this is the rise and this is the fall. And so one of the issues with human testing is that it really depends on how much testing effort is going on. So if the university or the county is doing a lot of testing, you find a lot of cases. It also depends on whether the people are being tested. So whether students are seeking testing or trying to avoid testing will affect the numbers that you see. Whereas with the wastewater, as I say, so long as they're pooping, we can see them. So going forward, we've been discussing, we've done quite a bit of sampling, subsampling on campus. We can find individual buildings and locations. We are able to measure in the water a lot of pharmaceuticals, so the drugs that are used for COVID, but also other infections. There's a lot of discussion about expanding this technology across the whole of the state, perhaps the Commonwealth campuses first, and then we've been in discussion with PA Department of Health about whether we might set up a network across the entire state. And I think we're also able to look at pharmaceuticals with, including narcotics, with some pretty sophisticated analysis. And then in the long term, one of the things we're very interested in is once people have stopped testing some, in a vaccine era where we hope there's a lot less virus, there won't be nearly as much human testing going on, but we'll be able to tell if there is virus around and where it's coming from. So the bottom line of all that, we think, is that we have now, this has moved from a research project to where we're pretty confident now that we can determine the underlying epidemiology. Our approach is a lot cheaper than human testing. The university is spending millions of dollars on human testing, and we can do this for, $5,000, $10,000 a semester once you've built sampling methods. We did detect the first viruses on campus, so we were the first to see it. We've managed to see the things coming up and down. I would say that we have seen very little evidence of the community spread in town except beyond the cases. And just to jump back to this, where the numbers rise up here in the county above what we were expecting, these are from postcodes outside of our borough or the State College campus. So this is for the surrounding postcodes. And so we can tell in some detail what's going on and where it's coming from. We've been analyzing the downstream effects of the isolation and quarantine, and we now think we can pretty closely relate the virus concentrations to the number of infected people who are in the isolation and quarantine. And we've shown that it's possible to get the virus isolated down to at least building clusters, so which cluster of dorms on campus have the virus. And that can be done anywhere, subject to the ability to get into the wastewater system to get a sample. And that often depends on how the catchments are structured. So it's not easy across the whole of the township to figure out what's coming from where. It all depends on how the plumbing works. I think the thing that we've got that's been most important from this is that we can have this sampling. It does have its problems, particularly, for example, if there's a lot of detergent being flushed through the system as buildings are being cleaned. But it doesn't have any of the biases associated with the testing effort or human behavior, and whether people are seeking testing or avoiding it. It doesn't matter. We can catch them. And so that's really important. And we have learned that we can now predict in real time what's going to happen, in the next day, next week, and so forth. So we can really get a good picture. And I think the expectation is that as we go forward and become, we hope, a lot less viral in community, that this sort of surveillance will become the way in which we watch this virus as it dies out and presumably bursts into action again from time to time, that these are the eyes that we have on the system. So we're pretty pleased. It's an awful lot cheaper. And once you've got the hardware in place to get the samples, it's pretty easy to keep testing and keep sampling. And I think compared to where we were, Sean, when we first started this in July, we're a lot more confident now that these numbers are giving us a very good picture of what's happening that is unbiased from the usual sort of problems with human testing. I do want to say we really appreciate the collaborations with the UAJO on this. It's been really terrific, the local collaborations. So with that, I'll stop and take questions.
Thank you. Sean, you have any curious discussion about the sort of general application of we as residents in the testing results and what we should change, or how our actions can be improved? Or
Well, I think the discussion mainly was around the fact that, there's an opportunity here to have be able to see the virus ahead of the testing. And I think that was some of the things that we stressed at the end, is that they were ahead of the game in terms of being able to see any infections and even see the decrease. So when we were in our discussions, we would see an increase in the numbers, and we'd look at their data, and it was an increase the week before that, before we actually saw it. And that was helpful for us, occasionally. But I know there's a few on here that have questions.
I see Gretchen has a hand up. Gretchen?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Gretchen Brand. I'm from the State College Area School District. And I had a question about you had mentioned that you could actually locate the virus down to clusters of buildings on campus. And I was curious, would that technology then be possible for buildings within the State College Area School District? Could you locate if there's virus coming out of specific buildings, analogous to what you were able to do on the Penn State campus?
Yeah, I think we'd need to have a look with the wastewater engineers at how your plumbing systems work. If we could get samples, not always easy to get a sample, so it depends on how the manholes work and so forth. But with the engineers, we could have a look at that. In principle, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think going forward, in a post-vaccine era where we all think there's no virus around, or at least we hope there's no virus around, a lot less, we could do early warning systems to see if anything is coming out of the school systems. Absolutely. I mean, it's not free, this stuff. It's we get a view on what's happening with one of our samples that costs roughly the same as a single human test. So we can sample the entire school for the price of a single human test. So yeah, I'd be really interested to work that up with you. I mean, it would need us to talk with I'm not the engineer. We need our engineers to talk with your engineers to figure out the plumbing. Absolutely.
That's just really interesting. I will follow up on that, and thank you.
Mr. Trevino.
Thank you. Dr. Reed, your presentation has re-triggered my scientific curiosity, and I don't want to bore the rest of the audience here, but so I'm wondering if you have written up your methods. Have you published any of this so I can take a look at how your techniques and what you're doing about issues like detergent and other things that are destroying samples?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. We are working on the publication at the moment. The methods, the molecular methods we're using are relatively standard. So we slightly adopted the CDC, standard CDC testing for the molecular methods. The amount of repetitive sampling we've done, the subsampling, that is nationally unique, and also the daily sampling. So Other places have done it every week or every couple of weeks. And you can see by the way the data bounces around that we don't think that's nearly enough. And so we're working on the statistical analysis part of that. But I'd be very happy, Dan, to send you that manuscript over when it's done. I'm hoping it's going to be in the next week or two.
Great, thank you.
Good, Mr. Lord.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for the presentation. Given your ability to be sampling different geographic areas, do you have any conclusions on cross-contamination from the student population to the general State College population?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Nice to see you. Yes, I think the data we have, and also the data that we have from the study, the Data for Action study, which is sampling students and community folk for antibodies, the picture that's emerging is that so far, and I want to emphasize so far, there's been very little spillover from the students to the local community, the geographically contiguous local community within State College. So basing that with the wastewater, when we see these numbers rise up, almost all of the county cases rose at the same rate that our wastewater did. And then when the wastewater came down, so too the county cases. So I think we're pretty confident that the initial dynamics were all tied up with the students. That's also true with what's just happened in the last month. It's almost all driven by students. And then the numbers that have been over and above what we're getting from the student testing have all been in outlying areas. So postcodes that are not captured in the State College area school district beyond that. And so we think that so far there's been remarkably little spillover from the students to the very local community. And we interpret that to be a result of very good community practices in terms of isolating from students, so masking, distancing, not working closely with students, and that the students themselves have been in one big bubble. You know, there has been very large amounts of transmission amongst the students. So they clearly have not been, you know, behaving as well as we might have liked, but the spillover community very locally has been remarkably small. So in terms of the antibodies that we're seeing in the community, that's still pre-semester levels, pre-last semester levels, whereas the students are, the antibody levels are at 30%. So yeah, so far so good, I have to say. And I really hope whatever was responsible for that continues. Really hope that we can manage to keep the student population, you know, socially distanced and masked and so forth away from the community until the vaccine rollout is big enough that we're all a lot better off.
Danny,
Oh, Teresa, go ahead.
my comment actually has to do with that. I live in that area. And what you actually told me is what we're sort of wondering here. Most of us are self-isolated. So we don't see our neighbors and we don't see our friends, or we wave at them from across the street. We don't shop. We do the pickup and delivery and what have you. So the real question is, do we see a light at the end of this tunnel? Because as long as our neighborhood and community and shopping centers are all filled with students who are relatively careless about this, they're better now than they were a few months ago. I will grant you that it's finally sunk in. But is there a light at the end of this tunnel that we can see if we do get our shots and we are, I mean, it seems to me we're still potential carriers, as are they. So I'm wondering, just, I don't expect things to go back to quote normal. I do expect them to go back to somewhat more reasonable in terms of social behaviors. And I'm trying to figure, is that this summer? Is that 2022? What do you tell people? Because I have neighbors who are about ready to break down their houses, and it isn't because of the winter.
Yeah, so I'm completely with you on this. Okay, so, you know, this is obviously projecting into the future is a tricky business, all right? So I'm, you know, allow me, like, I'm an optimist at the moment. So I think what's happened is that the very large numbers of students got, especially the social ones, the ones who couldn't bear not hanging out in big groups, got infected last semester. maybe 10,000 or more of them got infected. So maybe a third of the student body, and those will be the very social ones. And so we might actually be hitting herd immunity amongst the social group. Not 30% is too low for herd immunity, but if you think about these apartment blocks, the high density apartment blocks, pretty much all of them will have had it by now, even if they didn't know it. And so that's working in our favor. The vaccines are coming, and obviously we've got a long way to go in terms of rollout, but I feel like it's, by the summer we should have very significant coverage, and the majority of the students will either be naturally immune or very well behaved or vaccinated themselves. So I'm actually pretty optimistic that by the end of the summer, we might be in pretty good shape. Now, the question you're asking about whether the vaccines might still not be perfect and there's still some transmission, yeah, that's an open question, and we don't know about that at the moment. But I do feel a lot more optimistic than I did in the fall of, in August. It was terrifying watching those numbers rise. I think it's absolutely terrific that we had these numbers rise at the beginning of January. It looked like it was all going to happen again. And now it's turned over really steeply and it's going down, and hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Could be the snow.
I'll take it. Whatever it is, I'll take
Could be they're just frozen inside and they're in.
Yep. And if we ease up, it might go back to taking off again. But yeah, right now I have to say better looking numbers than we've seen in a long time.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Other comments? Scott, we have any other hands?
I see no hands.
Okay, thank you. Interesting presentation. I'm sort of curious about your testing with respect to the beneficial reuse program that Corey has and the ultra pure water that's coming out of the system. Did Corey talk to you about that at all?
No, but we did. I guess so. But we did do a lot of testing in July when we were seeing the virus going into the system. We did a lot of testing about what's coming out, and there's nothing coming out. Nothing detectable is coming out of the plant. So everything going into the plant is not infectious. It's just fragments of virus. But even the fragments are destroyed by the treatment system, so that we can't even find a hint of a genetic mark or anything in what's coming out. It's amazing what these guys are doing in the wastewater. It's they're really cleaning this stuff. Yeah.
In the beneficial reuse program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
People need to know that because we keep getting questions about the purity of the beneficial reuse water. So I'm glad you brought that point up. So
I can't speak to anything other than the COVID, but the COVID is no, there's nothing there.
Good. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Other comments? Okay, let's move on to number 7. We have a presentation on the Anti-Bias Coalition presented by Sonia DeLuca Fernandez and Katie Helso. I saw someone on.
Good evening.
There
Thank
you
you,
are.
Chair. Yep. May I share my screen?
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you. Kate, are you with us?
You're
Sure
signed.
am.
Okay.
Excellent. Kate's going to start us off. I never thought we would follow a poop discussion. So I've got the 13-year-old boy in me is just giggling. So yes, thank you for having us. We'll be brief.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate being here. I'm Kate Heinzel. I am a pastor in the State College community at University Mennonite Church. I've been here for about 2.5 years and right away started getting involved in CCU, Campus and Community and Unity. And the Center Region Anti-Bias Coalition was born out of CCU, and we want to just tell you a little bit about that. So Sonia, yeah, thank you. So CCU dates back to late 2014 when there was, it sounds like quite a bit of tension between the campus and the community. And in an effort to try and deal with that and work on relationships, Tom King and Harold McKenzie and others formed CCU. It's a really broad-based coalition of professors, police chiefs, pastors, students, other community leaders across a wide spectrum I think in tonight's meeting that happened this evening at 5, there were about 50 screens. So really, we are an action-oriented group. We work on promoting inclusivity and multicultural community events that respect diversity. You can learn more about us on our website, and we want to make sure that we came here tonight because we want the townships to know that we work as a coalition and we're here to support you, to encourage you, to use our resources and to get involved with us. Sonia, I'll let you continue.
Super, thank you. So what we're talking about specifically this evening is what was an outgrowth from Community and Campus in Unity to a subcommittee, if you will, the Policy and Advocacy Committee. And when there are several of us who have been involved for a couple of years now, I'm a Patton Township resident. There are others that are in the borough and other municipalities engaged in the Policy and Advocacy Committee, or PAC, and trying to figure out how to navigate what some of us, of being transplants, I've been in the area for about 4.5 years, find very new. And those are those very real borders between municipalities, and figuring out when I have questions or when something unpleasant happens, how am I supposed to deal with that? Who is available to help me? How do I navigate some situations? So for almost 2 years now, there have been several of us who have been talking about the need for a regional anti-bias coalition. We've had kind of an ad hoc way of hearing about events that happen in various communities, businesses. Sometimes people reach out to us for advocacy assistance, and sometimes there are businesses reaching out for training or questions because, you know, this being such a large and diverse group, everyone is very committed simply to making our communities better. So what we're really looking to do with this anti-bias coalition can really be boiled down to 2 things. One, improving how welcoming and inclusive our communities are. And 2, providing network support for township leaders in order to support those inclusive communities. So what you'll see on our final slide is kind of what I just talked through: our relationship to Community and Campus in Unity, the Policy and Advocacy Committee, and we have people involved in the Anti-Bias Coalition just starting. We're very, very new. So we'll take anyone's recommendations, but that we will be able to work very directly with leaders in the municipalities because we have community members from these municipalities involved in the coalition. So ultimately, the goal is to provide appropriate education, advocacy, and support for robust community. Thank you for your time this evening. If we can entertain any questions if that's of interest.
I have a question, Sonia. You said you had a meeting tonight of about 50 people. Are you inquiring of those people in which municipality they live to give us an idea?
Yes.
What currently is coming out of Harris Township or Patton Township or et cetera, et cetera?
That's a very important question. And the meeting that Kate was referring to was a Community and Campus in Unity general meeting. And the coalition is much smaller. But yes, we have surveyed participants for where they live. And believe it or not, I don't even know, Kate, if you can pull it up. We have a couple of fabulous high school students who are involved, and they were doing that work that you're asking about.
I would like to believe that there are representatives from all 6 of our municipalities working with you, but I can't speak to that.
Yes, and if we don't have someone identified right tonight, that is on our agenda to make sure that we have those linkages established. Because
we could help you do that.
super, thank you. Yes, that would be wonderful.
Questions of anyone? I see no yellow hands popped up. Scott, we have.
Yes, Laura and then Carla have their hands up.
Okay, Laura.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation and the work that you're doing. I guess just in the interest of building bridges and working together, I would ask if if you're aware of the effort to make a regional anti-discrimination hearing body, and the folks that are working on that. It's one of the drums I bang is how many different ways that we do or don't cooperate here regionally. It's hard to keep up with all of them. And sometimes there can be something going on over here and over here. And as you were talking, I just thought you would probably want to know about that work that's being done along with the other municipalities. I think right now, please forgive me if I'm wrong, other municipalities, but I think it's just the borough and Ferguson Township that are working on this. And part of the reason is because LGBTQ individuals are not included in state legislation to protect against discrimination. And by enacting local ordinances and having this regional body, it provides a platform for individuals that are experiencing that kind of discrimination to have a hearing. So anyway, just it's more of a question, comment, bridge, and just thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Ms. Stilson, Carla.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to say that I know that a few members of the elected official bodies for I know the borough and College Township, a couple managers also attend these, and I've started attending, as well as Paul Takak from the College Township. And I just wanted to encourage anybody who is interested in also attending and checking it out. I've learned so much. I don't even say anything. I just learned so much sitting and listening in on these meetings. And I just wanted to thank Sonia and Kate for the work that they're doing. But it's helped me be a better township council person, just in the way, now I know where to go when I need information, and I know better how to talk about things. So I just wanted to encourage you.
That's
I
really
saw a
kind.
thumbs up from Pamela. Pam, you want to?
Yes.
Is that a point of agreement?
Yes, I'm agreeing, but also, Sonia, can you put in the chat information how we can get in touch with you as representatives? We need phone numbers or an email so we can make sure that each of our municipalities are a part of this. So if you could just put some information how we can get in touch with you, we really would appreciate that.
So of course I have the world's longest email because I have 2 last names. And so now I have to make sure that I spelled my own name correctly. Let's try this. Thank you for that, Pam. Wonderful.
Might I suggest we run that through Scott and Eric's office?
Sure.
Send it to Scott and Eric, and then they can distribute to all the elected officials. We'll get it uniformly and correctly one time through.
Thank you.
Okay. Other yellow hands? Not see any? Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Now we have a confirmation of appointment for Center Regional Library Director, presented by Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet is a description of the lengthy process that we followed to do a national recruitment in order to replace outgoing library director Kathy Alloway, who we saluted a few minutes ago. And we went through, I think, a very inclusive and engaging process. It started with surveying all of you of the General Forum, employees of the SCLO Center Region Library, as well as stakeholders and other boards and commissions like the Library Board, the Foundation Board, et cetera. We used that information to help develop the criteria that we used in advertising for the position. Things like what would be the ideal characteristics for the library director. And we also used that information to help craft some of the questions that we asked candidates. We received candidate applications from all over the eastern part of the United States. We had a process to screen those applicants and conduct interviews. And as part of an agreement between the COG, adopted by the General Forum about 10 years ago, and the Library Board, the process was to have a combined selection committee, which is described in your packet, and then a final approval process that includes the Library Board making the appointment and then the General Forum doing the confirmation approval tonight. So we're very pleased to announce that Lisa Collins has been selected to be the next library director, and she's been appointed by the Library Board. And Lisa is with us tonight, and we would like to have a recommendation considered by the General Forum for confirmation of the appointment made by the Library Board last week. A number of folks participating in the meeting tonight were part of that selection process, and any of you may want to add a couple of comments along the way, but I recommend approval of the confirmation with the motion that's in your packet, please.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Coming from Mr. Trevino. A second, please.
Second from Danell.
Okay. Discussion. None? We have a motion and second. Oh, Laura.
I don't know about discussion. Again, I'll just make a comment. It was a pleasure being part of that committee and getting to know Lisa. And I'm just absolutely thrilled for her to be on board and driving our local library. So welcome, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor of that, signify by saying aye or wave or.
Aye.
Whatever we want to do, welcome Lisa. So.
Great. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank a couple of our staff folks who were very helpful in this. Becca Pettit and Brady Collins were instrumental for making this process go as smoothly as it did. And I think Lisa is available if you'd like to call on her to say a few words, please.
Well, I've never met a librarian that doesn't have a few words to share. So, Lisa, here's your first opportunity.
That is completely the case.
Keep it short.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was thinking as I was listening to everything that you had to say about Kathy earlier tonight, just how incredibly thankful I am to have had the chance to be mentored by both Kathy Alloway and her predecessor, Betsy Allen. I know I have huge shoes to fill, but I'm definitely excited to have the opportunity. I also wanted to thank everyone that served on the screening and the selection committees for the position. The process definitely gave me a chance both to share my background and my qualifications for the position, but it also gave me the chance to share in even greater detail all the different varieties that are provided to our community by SCLO Center Region Library. And you'll definitely find that it's one of my passions is to talk about what we do for our community and with our community. I care deeply about the community that we all serve. I know all of you do as well, and I am just so honored to get the chance to work with and to learn from all of you. So thank you so much for the welcome.
Welcome.
Yay! You go, girl. Woo! Thank you. Thank you. Woo!
Settle down, Alloway. Settle down. We also have another relationship with Lisa that we won't talk about this evening, so. Welcome. Okay, number 8, Code Board of Appeals. Is Walt on somewhere?
I am.
Hi, Walt.
Greetings. So the Regional Code Board of Appeals, last year, if you remember, we went through a reorganization process to make the Board of Appeals, how should I say, a little bit more streamlined and more efficient. As part of that, we are asking you to make the appointments that are included in your agenda packet. We've included the members of the board, their resumes for your review. This is being referred to each of the municipalities for individual appointment. We have, because we're just starting a new board, we have given you the board appointments. All of these are actually serving on the existing board or have served on the existing board. The only one that is not currently seated is Alan Popovich, and but he has served on the board previously. And so we've put forward a slate of 3 engineers, 3 architects, and 1 contractor who all work and do business consistently in the region, and are recommending those for the Board of Appeals appointments at the lengths described and the terms described. I'd answer any questions if you have any.
A most impressive list of professionals.
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to, as found on page 6, and would ask you read the motion and the list of individuals, if you would, please. Whoever wants to make that.
I, Laura, move that the
Okay.
general forum forward the following nominations to the member municipalities for appointment to the Center Region Building and Housing Board Board of Appeals for the identified terms.
Second.
Do the list of names too, Laura.
Douglas Henry, Chad Mayholtz, Brian Walker, J. Michael Leakey, Scott Good, Ryan Solanowski, Alan Popovich.
Okay, I think Elliot made the motion. We have a second to that.
Yeah.
Okay, motion and a second. We have questions of that group. The most prestigious group. Not hearing any. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Center Region Sustainability Survey. Pam Adams, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
So- Perfect. So this item is asking the general forum to release the sustainability survey, and the Public Services and Environmental Committee started discussing this. And in January, it moved over to the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee. So both of those have been involved in providing input into this survey. The purpose of the survey, as it talks in here, is to sort of kick off the public engagement process for climate action planning. It's going to provide us with some information on what folks know, where they fall with the discussion on climate action, as well as we think we'll probably get some key teaching points to help us with the planning as far as what we need to do as far as actions. It's definitely going to provide some information to guide decision-making on what should be included in the climate action and adaptation plan. In a couple more agenda items, I will be giving an update on why and where we are with the climate action plan, but this item is just focused on the survey. So a mailer will be mailed out. We're going to sort of break it into 2 different survey responses, but it's the same survey. The mailer will go out to 3,000 residents. We were doing a sampling following the model of what the regional parks plan did, looking at 2,000 homeowners and 1,000 of people who rent. And then once that mailer's out, we'll also do an online survey promotion through social media, newsletters, and things like that. So the motion is included in there. Madison McCormick has been helping us with creating the survey and getting it out, and she'll be with us through this semester.
Is he a student, Pam?
Yes, sorry. They're a Penn State student at Smeal. And so they're here if there's anything, but they've been helpful with the working with different professors and talking to people, and has some background on doing surveys in the past.
Yeah, good, thank you. I would entertain a motion as found at the top of page 8.
Yep, I would like to move that the general forum, as recommended by the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee and the Executive Committee, authorize the release of the community survey to gather public input in preparation for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan.
Good, thank you. There we second to that.
Second.
Good. Discussion on that motion. No yellow hand. Okay, Laura, see yellow hand.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Pam, for all the work that you've done. I just have 2 quick questions. The first one is just recalling some of the data about commercial energy use and its slice of the pie in terms of climate change. I'm assuming, but I perhaps could be wrong, that there's some way in the survey, I know you're targeting homeowners and renters, but I'm assuming then there's some way in the survey to look at that subset of individuals that are involved with commercial property management that would relate to that slice of the pie of potential change.
Yeah, so for the mailer, it is going to homeowners and renters, but the very first question is whether you own property, whether you are a business owner, whether you, I can't remember them. I can actually, hold on.
Okay.
I do have it right here. I'm a business owner in the center region. I work in the center region. I'm a property owner. So we will be able to pull out each of those and give the results looking at a business perspective versus a homeowner. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And then my other question was, and I know I've asked this before, but I'm getting some conflicting information. So the climate adaptation and action plan that will be the product that this survey will feed information to, that plan is both for internal COG change and I know you're like, please stop asking this question, but I keep getting conflicting information, and change in the community, different segments in the community. Yes.
Yes. So the plan is for the community. So it is broader than just municipal operations, and I'll be talking a little bit more about it, but when you look at the strategies, each one of the sectors, whether it's energy and buildings or land use or transportation, pretty much we've learned that municipal operations is where we want to start. So it has its own little section on what we need to do.
Great.
Now, a lot of this is still up in my head, but it's in, I shouldn't say my head. It's not in a plan form yet, but municipal operations will be identified in the plan at that large level. And then part of implementation will be maybe having each municipality create their own. So, but yes, municipal operations, the plan is sort of where we want to start is going to be looking at ourselves before we start having others have to take action or we need to walk the talk.
Yes, thank you for re-clarifying that for me.
Yes,
very much.
No problem.
I can see other subsets of using the data. The school district with all of its buildings and acreage could take the data and apply it, particularly with respect to new buildings, the older buildings, any major corporation, could look at it. Major contractors like the Hawbaker Group. There's a lot of opportunity for subsets of what you found to look in-house at themselves. So we can share that then. So I think we have a motion and a second, don't we?
We do.
Okay. More questions, more yellow hands. Okay, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye. Wave your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, university report. Sharima Young, are you on somewhere?
I am, Denny. Good evening,
Hi.
everyone. How are you? I just have a brief report. We're still doing testing of students, and right now our arrival testing positivity rate is less than 1%, which is good news and probably reflects the earlier report that you heard this evening. I also sent a couple of websites today, and one of which describes some testing from last week. We'll have another one coming out this week, but I also sent a website discussing the departure of Dr. Barron. So I'll put that in the chat if you hadn't seen it already. So he announced his departure officially at the BOT meeting last week. So the Board of Trustees will be working on recruitment and selection process to replace him. So that will be in 2022. So just an FYI on that. And also that article talks about his priorities for the next 16 months. So you can see what he'll be focused on during his remainder of time with us. And that is all I have for this evening.
Good, thank you. For those of you that watched the news today, there were 13 positive cases in Center County. That's the lowest number we had in a long, long time. So nice to see that. Thank you. State College Area School District. Gretchen, might you still be on? There,
Yes,
okay,
I'm
thank
still
you.
here. Thanks, Danny. Thank you. So I have four items to report to you all this evening. The first is that at the last general forum meeting, I reported on new charter legislation for that would reorganize how charter schools are funded and certifications and things like that. And the update on that is that now there are several school districts throughout Pennsylvania in 3 different counties that have all passed resolutions to support this legislation. And Dr. O'Donnell, the superintendent of State College Area School District, has been invited to participate in a press conference about this legislation. So this is progressing, and it's been a long time coming, but it looks like it might actually happen pretty soon. The second item is that I wanted to report on the vaccine effort, which was a collaboration between Center Volunteers Medicine and State College Area School District. And again, information was sent out to superintendents throughout the region that if they had teachers or staff who qualify for the vaccine under phase 1A, then they could come and get it at Mount Nittany Middle School. And so several districts over have participated in this, and a good amount of teachers have been able to be vaccinated against COVID. Some are still awaiting their second dose, but it's in the making, and that's really thanks to Dr. O'Donnell and Center Volunteers in Medicine for making this happen. It's very exciting. The third item is that I just wanted to report that the State College Area School District is striving to develop a budget plan. This is challenging due to the budget constraints that the school district is looking ahead to due to COVID. It's looking like cuts will probably need to be made. Nothing has been decided yet, but it's been a lot of very serious conversations happening in the Finance Committee. And then the fourth thing I wanted to report on is actually really good timing with tonight with the CCU report, that at our last school board meeting, there were state high students, and I know CCU mentioned that they have some amazing state high students who are working with them, and I have a feeling these are probably some of the same students, and they have written and passed a a student government diversity and inclusion resolution. And we were really impressed with the presentation of their resolution. And I don't want to take up too much of your time to read you the resolution, but I just had to tell you a couple things. One of the points in their resolution, they write, we recognize our responsibility in the creation of a truly equitable, safe, and just school for all students, faculty, staff, and community members. And then just the last thing I wanted to share with you, also a point in their resolution, we dedicate ourselves to the work of equality, equity, and inclusion. We will celebrate and work with all people while challenging ideas, policies, and procedures that obstruct all students' right to a quality education. And so we're really proud of these students. And this also is executing the inclusive excellence policy that the school board passed a couple years ago. So thanks for your time this evening.
I hear there's going to be another mass vaccination at Mountain Indian Middle School this Saturday, next Saturday.
I had the date written down and I don't know where it is right now, but you are absolutely correct. There's another one that's coming up. I believe those slots are all filled, but
This Saturday, the 27th.
Saturday the 27th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Questions of veteran? Okay. We have a report by Eric. Eric, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Just a couple of quick reminders. In your packet is the February COG activity report, and it highlights a lot of great things happening in the COG agencies, and I'd be happy to help try to answer any questions if there's anything I can answer, or agency directors I'm sure would be able to as well. Last week I sent out a link to a survey in an email to each of you regarding the COG strategic plan, asking for some feedback on mission, vision, and value statements to start that part of the process, and there'll be more to come on that. And then after the meeting tonight, I know it's been a little bit longer than normal meetings by the time we get to the end, but we'll have the breakout rooms available for a few minutes of conversation if anybody would like to stick around. Scott will put us into some breakout rooms, and that's for the elected officials and staff again. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any, or turn it over to the agency directors' reports. We're going to try and start having one or two directors speak on that item again, like we used to do. And tonight we have Jim May, who's going to give a few reports.
Mr. Mayor, you on?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Danny. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, as Eric mentioned, we're looking at a little bit of a different way of communicating with you. At one point, for newer General Forum members, agency directors, we get up on a monthly basis and provide you a verbal update, answer questions. But doing that over little boxes on our computer screen is a little bit difficult. So we think we need to do a better job of informing you of some of the things that we're doing. So occasionally we'll do kind of project-based updates on certain things. In the spring, Tom Zilla from our MPO will be coming forward to you to talk a little bit about road construction projects coming up in the spring and the summer, because we have a lot of them coming. And
can you come a little closer to the mic, Jim? Step a little closer to the mic.
Sure.
Good,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
we will, Tom Ziller will be here in the spring with an update on road construction projects. This evening, I'm going to call back Pam Adams. Pam is going to provide you a little update on how we got to this point in the climate action and adaptation planning process, and a little bit about where we're going over the next few months. We are trying to get this plan wrapped up by the end of the summer sometime. So there's going to be a lot of activity in climate action planning. So without further ado, Denny, if I can ask Pam to come back on and share her screen. She'll make about a 10-minute presentation for folks.
Pam, you're on.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I'll go through this, but I wanted to do this since we're going to be doing this survey. It seems to make sense to review and maybe explain why we're doing this to some people who are new listening tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're working on climate action planning and what we're doing. And I like to start with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that are listed here. I like them because it shows all the different but related pieces to make a community sustainable. It's important to recognize that there isn't just one thing on here that you can't do without all the other ones being impacted, and that there's a connection. So while we're talking about climate action, I do recognize that it doesn't stand alone, and it's important to recognize all these other ones with the goal of being a sustainable community. So I'll share with you why climate action planning has become a priority, and it's really because we're starting to experience the impacts locally. Pennsylvania is mostly affected by these extreme rain events. That's sort of the big impact that we're seeing here, and it costs money, and it's also a safety issue. It's a public disruption, and then farmers are also impacted by the extreme weather too. So as it's shown here, it has cost PennDOT 125 million extra in 2018 to deal with this type of flood and landslide infrastructure. But warmer temperatures also are having an impact in our region on public health issues. And this is just one of the examples, but Lyme's disease has grown 7 times in the last decade. And this graph here shows 1996 to 2018, and you can see visually that the Lyme disease rates have been increasing. And so for our county, it's 7 times more. And really, we're seeing the number, the distribution, the length of time of the year that ticks and mosquitoes are active have been increasing. Another thing to be that's impacting our region are these extreme weather events are causing power outages. And that's a hazard to the nation's energy system. And I'm sure everybody's aware of the problem that Texas has been having. And Pennsylvania is one of the largest electricity producers as well. So it's something that we need to prepare and start talking about how we can be prepared and more resilient. This graph here shows that between 2004 and 2012, we've seen double the power outages. And I need to update it, but this Climate Central hasn't done it in the same format. But for the Northeast, weather-related outages from the past decade are 2.5 times since the 2000 to 2009 decade. So it's continuing this increase of power outages. And these changes are happening because of increasing temperatures. This graph here shows that Pennsylvania has increased 1.8 degrees in the last century, and it's expected to warm another at least 5.4 degrees by 2050. And with these temperature increases, it will have an impact on our infrastructure, our economy, and our ecosystem. So it's in our best interest to prepare and adapt. And you, as the elected officials, have asked to create a climate action and adaptation plan. And the goal is to come up with pragmatic, fiscally responsible actions to mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions and also adapt to changing climate conditions. So there's 7 steps that have been identified here, and we've completed 1 and 2. We're currently in the 3 and 4 phase with the idea that we will develop an action plan this summer. I'm going to go through these, but a lot of work has been happening on identifying practices, determining our vulnerabilities. And so we're now getting close to, well, we're now going out to the public to start talking about them to help us prioritize them. So that first milestone is completing an inventory. And we did this with 2016 data, and the results are shown here. For our community, we have 824,000 some metric ton carbon dioxide equivalents. That's carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. And you can see the 3 biggest areas are residential and commercial energy, and then transportation. But we did look at our solid waste emissions and our agriculture, parkland, and water and wastewater emissions. This data does not include Penn State. They have their own. And so we didn't want to double count. So we're collaborating and working together, but we're looking at our inventories separately. The inventory results are available on our website with the report, executive summary, and infographic. And the purpose of doing an inventory is so it can help us, and it did help us, to establish reduction target. It will help us identify the tangible actions to reduce those emissions, and then also measure progress in the future by doing future inventories to see if we're reducing those emissions. Milestone number 2 was to set targets, which we have done at the July General Forum meeting. You passed a resolution that included 4 actions that supports community efforts to bring long-term benefits focused both on reducing emissions and adapting. They're shown here as 45% reduction in emissions by 2030, 80% by 2050, and then the plan is to do carbon offsets for the remaining 20%. But what's important, and I show here, is that this was not done alone by the region. And so I want to thank State College, Ferguson, and Harris for setting targets within their own municipalities, which has really helped to pull the region together. And we're supporting the state's goals that are identified there at the top. So when we're looking to reach those targets, we're talking about policy, education, and influence that we can do at the regional level. Recognizing that creating a plan like this is not just a one person or even a one department task. The elected officials last June created this Climate Action and Adaptation Technical Advisory Group that was overseen by Public Services and is now currently overseen by the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee. And so the trick here is that right there in the middle is where the COG committees are, the sustainability planner, but we needed some technical help. So the technical advisory group pulls together, there's 7 of us that are on that committee, 2 from local government, 2 from Penn State, 1 represents agriculture, and 1 from private industry on the energy side. But even those 7 at the tag don't have all of the science and the knowledge. So basically, we continue those spokes outward to find and work with other people to identify the best practices that should be included in the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And so over the past 6 months, May through December, I had 5 different sessions with over 70 subject matter experts, which included folks from Penn State Energy and Environment, the director there. We had the USDA, Ag Research participate, Trout Unlimited, Fish and Boat. So we've had a whole range of subject matter experts participate in these sessions to help us gather information. We provided them with some strategies, and then we asked what's missing, what are the pitfalls and dangers with what we're looking at, and then how would you prioritize them? And basically we have 180 actions or strategies that we can include in the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and we need to start figuring out what is the priority of what should go in. And just real quickly, I'm not going to go through all 180 of them, but these are the 5 sectors that we have sessions on. And these are kind of the highlights, if you want to say. As far as water and even ag and land management, there was a common theme to leverage all the strong partnerships that already exist and continue to build upon their work. Basically, find alignment to help increase our effect and impacts. Waste, there was a lot of discussion on more the purchasing side of things and trying to develop strategies to help in that area, as well as food waste. Energy was the first one we started with. And for that one, it's really a lot about what can we do and how can we make our buildings more energy efficient. It would certainly help with resilience and help having people stay in place longer, as well as when you start with energy efficiency. You also are helping building property owners save money. So that was a good one where that we believe will be starting. And then transportation, that one is definitely one of the more complicated ones, I'd say. It's definitely linked to land use. And as far as the pandemic, transportation is probably has a lot of questions as to how things are going to shake out afterwards. So within all of these, as Laura had asked, and I mentioned, we are going to be looking at a subsection of all these for municipal operations. And again, to become leaders to demonstrate how and why to do it. These are 4 of the objectives that we sort of were repeating themes in all of the sectors. And really, it's about education. We need to do more to explain so people understand climate education and why we're doing things. Partnerships are going to be key. This is not like a little local government project that can happen. It's really going to be much more beneficial if we all find where we align and work together. We certainly want to develop equitable solutions. So when we input and include a strategy, we want to make sure that it's equitable to all. And there'll be a lot of advantages to advocating for state and federal actions. So now it's time to get input from our community. And so this is the postcard mailer that will go out this week. And then we'll be promoting it online as well to reach all members of the community is what we're hoping for. Besides the community survey, which we'll do now, I should say late February through April 30th, we'll be continuing to get that information. But now we're going to start preparing and having other conversations. We want to talk to stakeholders and talk about things that there's a priority for them and where we have common ground and connections so that we can work together on things that are important to both of us. Ferguson Township is going to be having a community resilience building workshop that's being put on through the Pennsylvania Municipal League and the Sustainable Pennsylvania. They're doing a pilot with Nature Conservancy, who's going to be facilitating a workshop to identify hazards, strengths, and vulnerabilities and help prioritize. And then April 13th, hopefully most of you know about this date, but we'll be having Laura Fowler's, who's a law professor and has a mediation class. Their students are going to facilitate a conversation about priorities, what government's doing, and what we're doing on climate action and planning. And the last thing there is the website that was created by a former high school student, Lachlan Campbell, and they are currently an NYU student. So that has a lot of good information that I hope you check out if you haven't already yet. Then lastly, just a couple of these I like to put up if you haven't seen these before. The Yale program on climate change does these opinion maps. And so this is 2020, and it shows that the percent of adults who think global warming is happening is 72%. In Pennsylvania, it's 70, and in Center County, it's 73%. So it is something that people think is happening, and they also support carbon dioxide as a pollutant. As you see this one up here, you have different questions that you can ask or different statements. And so in Center County, 77% would be in favor of a carbon dioxide regulation. But the interesting thing is that people don't like talking about it. So this is why it's important. Right here it says that in the US, only 35% talk about global warming, at least occasionally. So we need to start having the conversations. And the reason is we want to promote an understanding. And locally, we want to talk about why we're creating this climate action and adaptation plan. We want to use the input to guide decision-making and prioritization. We want to build broader ownership of the decisions that must be made. That'll help with implementation and getting things going. And then it's important to prepare the community to build readiness for the next phase. So the timeline is shown here. There's a lot of different activities that have happened, and the green is where we are in 2021, with the goal to have the report finished in the summer of this year. So that is all I have. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I can answer them. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
I Any yellow hands pop up there? Scott, do we have any yellow hands?
I don't see any, Mr. Chair.
Good. Thank you, Pam. Good information. Let's move into committee reports, executive committee. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, congratulations to Lisa Collins as our newest director. The report lists a number of items that we reviewed, which culminated in tonight's meeting. 2 items listed there that I'd like to bring a little more detail on. The first being the engagement of Chris Gibbons of Concord Financial Advisors. For those on the Finance Committee, the last time you heard from Chris, the number 75,000 was thrown out for his services. 75,000 reflects his estimate of potential total borrowing costs. The cost to provide the information that the committee requested was $7,500, and the budget amendment from the Parks budget was approved, and they were engaged. Should we move forward with a full refinancing, Mr. Gibbons, in his normal partnered fashion, will credit that $7,500 against a projected total fee of $30,000 for his services. Since that was quite a bit different than when the Finance Committee met, I wanted to expound on that. The other item I would mention is the General Forum Room audio and video enhancements. What happened there is we're going to build off of Mr. Binkley's work that was referred to facilities to review, and hopefully we're moving towards a audio loop for the minimum of an audio loop for the General Forum Room to facilitate those that benefits so much. Finally, there was a couple items that aren't reflected here. One is congratulations, you are currently live on YouTube. That was offered by CNET, and I've already checked, and yes, indeed, it sure is. The other one, there was a quick discussion on a couple future agenda items. One, to put a process for a periodic appointment of the solicitor, and also a discussion on communications out of our various committees. Pending any questions, that's all I have, sir.
Good, thank you. You used to say, smile, you're on candid camera. Well, now you are. Okay, executive committee, Evan.
Well, that was the executive committee, so I'm going to do the
finance committee.
Although
Sorry.
I must say, Denny, that Rich gave half of the finance committee report as part of the executive committee report. So I want to thank him very much for that. So I don't need to talk about that. And that was the Chris Gibbons arrangement, which you see there in the body of the finance committee report. What's reported in the agenda is pretty much covers everything. I also want to congratulate Lisa. Lisa has come along with Kathy to the finance committee fairly often, so she is not a stranger to that. So that'll be good for her and for us. And I think that pretty much summarizes where we are for today, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Human Resources, Parks Capital did not meet. Public Safety, Laura.
Thank you very much. We also covered some items tonight that the committee moved forward. In addition to that, our first order of business was to recognize 2 CODE staff members, Kathy Woods and Brian Samsel, for their care, diligence, and professional service. This recognition was based on a glowing email from a property owner that shared his recent experience with these staff members. The email was from a builder who had worked with code and zoning in many township, boroughs, and cities over the years, and described his experience here as very positive, and described staff as professional, responsive, easy to work with, pleasant, efficient, patient, and providing great service. Jumping ahead to staff reports. We had a brief discussion on code statistics and the decrease in construction from last January as compared to this January. Additionally, the regional code permitting software project is now moving forward again, and we should be seeing more on that soon. Next, Mr. Bear reviewed his dashboard report on the progress to meet the goals of the recently completed fire protection program study. He then provided a review of the standard of cover quarterly report. And this report is broken down by rural and suburban calls and includes parameters they must meet and an assessment of whether they were met. And lastly, Mr. Bear also reviewed a white paper he wrote on statewide activity with the potential to impact the regional fire protection program. The paper is thorough and detailed, and I'll just hit a highlight. In January 2017, the Senate passed Resolution 6, which established a commission to study and make recommendations regarding the state of the Pennsylvania Fire Service and emergency medical services. Mr. Bear writes, "The ongoing situation is summed up by the very first paragraphs of the SR6 report. Fire and EMS are in a crisis right now. Simply put, EMS is woefully lacking in funding, and the number of volunteer firefighters has fallen dramatically over the decades. Despite these stark facts, to date, the legislature has made very limited progress on SR6 recommendations. There are a number of recommendations that Mr. Bear highlighted, and all of them have a direct effect on the funding of these services locally. I think that this white paper is an essential read for those hoping to understand the crisis in fire and emergency medical services we currently face in local communities across Pennsylvania." Mr. Kaufman's emergency management report was primarily related to the COVID response, and in particular, the vaccine shortage and problems with rollout. As a result of Mr. Bear's and Mr. Kaufman's report, the Public Safety Committee has embarked on some advocacy efforts. We are writing a letter of support for Mr. Bear's recommendations in regard to the SR6 report, and a letter of advocacy to move police and fire personnel to vaccine tier 1A. Additionally, we had moved to write a letter in regard to the access issues that vulnerable populations have in registering to receive their vaccines and to advocate for a centralized registration system. But before we could send the letter, some fantastic news came out of the state. The Pennsylvania Department of Health had issued an order requiring all vaccine distribution locations to provide phone access as well as web access for vaccine registration. And this order went into effect February 19th. That's about it. And the Public Safety Committee's next meeting will be Tuesday, March 9th. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Always learn a lot of little things about the things you do, don't you? Thank you. Teresa Lafer and I agreed that item F is an adequate explanation of public services and TLU. So we'll move on. Mr. Frank for facilities, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for those caring, there are 3 viewers on YouTube. For the Facilities Committee, we met on February 2nd. We received various updates listed in the agenda. One of those was a video tour of the code renovations in there's a new suite that was very enjoyable. Also received for another item, the Millbrook Marsh Nature Center Boardwalk is moving forward on the 70% design items, and we look forward to being involved in that. A video tour of the code renovations. And pending any questions, that's all I have. Very
good, thank you. Climate change and sustainability. Ms. Whitman. You on somewhere?
Yep, sorry, I had to unmute
Hi,
there.
okay.
So, as you said, Denny, as you and Teresa said about the summary of your committee, I can say the same about climate action. For the most part, I would like to add that the one solid contribution the new Climate Action and Sustainability Committee made to Pam's tremendous long-standing work on this was advice on the postcard to make it have more graphic and less words. And I see that she did that swimmingly. So that looks great. And the other thing I just want to add real quick is to Ms. Danini's question earlier about how we are reaching out and getting information from business owners and commercial property owners. One way that we will be tapping into that information may be through the forum, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan Forum that we're working on with Laura Fowler's class. That'll be April 13th. So I'll put in a plug for that. One of the interviewers, interviewees may be somebody involved in commercial and business property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Other business, we have about a page and a half of other business items. Anyone have questions or concerns about any of those? If not, we'll keep moving to the adjournment page. Page 12 has an adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Pardon?
I'm moving to adjournment.
Okay, second.
Second, Laura.
Good. Remember, test positive, test negative, stay positive. Thank you, folks. Have a good day.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.